building a business without advertising is like winking at a pretty lady in the dark, right? You know what you're doing, but nobody else does.
All right, everyone, you're welcome to another episode of the borderless podcast. And yes, if you want to know how to grow brand awareness using influencer marketing, you are just in the right place. So just sit back, relax, and have a wonderful time. So hey guys, so would you like to learn how to use influencers to grow your brand awareness? This is the show for you. We're going to be talking about that and a lot of other things concerning influencer marketing. And on here to discuss that, we have Imogie. Imogie, come on. We're supposed to have drum rolls at this point of the show, right? All right. Yeah, so Imogie, you're welcome to the borderless podcast. The borderless podcast is a podcast that discusses viral content from Lagos, Nigeria, and the rest of Africa to the world, right? So we're exporting this industry that's growing very fast, right? To the world. So content for Nigerians and for people outside Nigeria, right? And how the industry is growing and how people can actually tap into this industry and get the best results.
Okay.
Right. So we'll just go straight to the point. Imogie, just give us an introduction. Tell us about yourself, your career journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will keep it as brief as possible so that we don't talk too long.
Yeah.
So my name is Emmanuel. Most people that know me from school call me Imogie.
Yeah.
Right. And then my guys call me IMG. Right.
Yeah.
So I consider myself to be a builder. I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
And basically, I see my journey as targeted at delivering value to viable markets.
Right.
So in a nutshell, that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in terms of how I express myself, I'm adventurous, I love fun, and I try to vibe and chill from time to time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, that's a very interesting. Will I call that a resume or a bio? Right. That's not a resume. That's a bio. So can you give us your resume?
Okay. So my background is engineering. However, when it comes to market experience, I started out in advertising.
Right.
So over the last 8 to 9 years, I worked in the advertising space and marketing. And I went from agency to building my own brand and to working in the tech space, which is what I do presently.
Okay, you're working in tech fully.
Yes.
So, but you've built a lot of experience.
Absolutely.
In advertising.
Absolutely.
Right. So when you were working in advertising, what did you think about influencer marketing at the time? I know you stopped working in advertising fully, right, in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, a bulk of what I do right now, I'm still engaged in that space, right? So from time to time, I still engage with quite a number of influencers, and of course, I am keen on following what's happening in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to advertising and building brands, I'll say that influencer marketing is very important, especially with regards to your subject matter, right? So the question you would ask a brand is, what do you want to do in terms of engaging your audience? What are your objectives?
Yeah.
Right? By the time you're able to outline your objectives, who your audience is, that is when you begin to talk about influencer marketing, right? Which influencer will tap and align with my brand objectives? Which influencer his persona would fit into that space?
Okay. So on this show, I've heard a lot of people say persona. So I think one key thing, just to add to what you've said, is the influencer most of the time is so when you're working with an influencer, when you're doing influencer marketing, basically you are taking people's reputation, taking people's persona and using to sell your business, right? So just to tie it around what we're discussing, brand awareness, how to grow your brand awareness using influencer marketing. So if you want to be very practical, let's define what brand awareness is, so we're quite clear, right? Then how will a business, say for instance should I say an FMCG, or let's say a business, right? How can they use like in practical steps, build their brand's awareness that we're going to define, right, using influencer marketing?
Okay. So I will put it this way. In the advertising space, there's a very popular saying that building a business without advertising is like winking at a pretty lady in the dark, right? You know what you're doing,
right,
but nobody else does. So if nobody's aware of what you're building, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, maybe family and friends will purchase your product or take advantage of your service. But everybody outside that market space, they are not aware of your product.
They're lost.
Small businesses and enterprises can now receive borderless payments from customers anywhere in the world. Skrape is a crypto payment gateway that allows businesses to receive payments globally with cryptocurrency. Skrape allows you to collect payments on your website and app through our decentralized engine and gives you the ability to receive payments instantly into any wallet provider of your choice. You can also create a payment link and receive instant settlements, avoid long settlement cycles, and sign up on Skrape today. Join thousands of other Skrape users and begin to enjoy speedy service. Skrape is your crypto payment buddy.
So you've defined brand awareness.
Yes.
Getting people outside your, probably just your personal sphere, to know about what you're doing, right? So second question is, so how can so this is like the meat of the discussion. How can I engage influence? So I'd like this to be as thorough as it can get, right?
Okay.
We'll talk about how you can use the mega influencers or the macro influencers, then down to the micro, then nano, how you can use influencers. Because influencers, so when we say influencers, first thing that comes to your head is Taoma, but Shaggy, Cine Talker, right? But those are the mega influencers, right? So, but they are smaller influencers. So, how can people engage, right? And you can give us a few real life examples from your experience as well.
Okay. So I will speak to how you can start off doing your influencer marketing. There's a simple principle called the AIDA principle.
AIDA principle.
AIDA, that is AIDA.
Okay.
A stands for attention.
Yeah.
I stands for interest. D stands for desire, and A stands for action. Right.
Yeah.
Now, AIDA principle basically transits a consumer from the awareness, attention stage to the point where he takes an action. So that's your basic spectrum.
Right.
You're moving him from where he has no idea what your product is down to where he makes a decision to buy your product. Now, influencers can help you at every point in this spectrum. Typical example will be in order to gain attention, right? The first question you will ask yourself is, what product am I selling? Let's say Coca-Cola, for example. Are we allowed to mention brands?
Yeah, of course, you can mention brands.
Okay. So, Coca-Cola, for example, the question would be, for the marketing manager of Coca-Cola, first question he'll be asking is, what am I trying to achieve? Is it, am I just pushing out a thematic campaign? Is it a festive season where I want to communicate my brand value to share love within the festive? Is it a situation where I'm focused on the numbers? Is it a situation where I'm responding to competition, right? So all of this will be clearly detailed in your marketing brief that the marketing manager will dish to you. Based on these objectives that the marketing manager wants to achieve, we will then decide back end if an influencer is even required in the first place. But for the purpose of this conversation, an influencer is required.
Yeah.
And the question is, which influencer would be in alignment with what the brand wants to communicate, right? You mentioned persona earlier. Basically, what a persona is who is this person in terms of a profile, in terms of positioning, in terms of expression, in terms of values. How does the person's own brand or the brand he has built around his influencing work, how does it align with that of the brand, Coca-Cola brand in this sense? Now, your influencer, of course, has to be someone who has a community of people around him. Now, for Coca-Cola is a well-known brand, right? So you may not necessarily be looking for big ticket influencers. Anybody under a rock already knows Coca-Cola. For smaller brands, you are looking for influencers who can help you drive reach across mass audience. So you need influencers who have the numbers. You need influencers who can own your brand and deliver. From the point of attention, when you have gotten audience attention, the next thing for you is to move them to the point of interest. This proposition that Coca-Cola is bringing to the market, how do I get them interested enough to participate, right? From interest, you then move them to the point of desire and decision, right? And then at the final stage, we're talking about action. Coca-Cola has said the new PET bottle of Coca-Cola drink is 100 naira.
Yeah.
I can quickly go buy that instead of a competing brand.
Right.
And so that is how you move from attention to interest to desire and then to take
So
action.
for the sake of this conversation, we are focused more on the attention. So like I said, Coca-Cola is big. They don't even need any. I think although Coca-Cola will spend a lot of money on attention just to remain relevant over Pepsi, right? But let's use
A smaller brand.
Let's
Okay.
use it. Let's use
Fantastic.
It. Yes.
So for a smaller brand, for the purpose of this conversation, I'll introduce my brand.
Okay.
I started building a brand with my partner in 2020. It's called Kafa House. Basically, Kafa is a culture and lifestyle brand built around delivering value and services to communities, right? So across services, natural hair salon, pedicure, nails, coffee, and then as the vision of the brand goes into larger communities, we're talking about real estate, we're talking about hospitality and what have you. Now, at this point where the brand is very young, the question is, what is our objective, right? Objective is to get more footfall into our space. We want to drive traffic. That's one. We want people to be aware of what the brand stands for, right? And ultimately build the brand from there. Now, do we need influencers? Absolutely, we do. In fact, over the last 1 year plus, at each point in time, we have seen the value of influencers in building our brand. So how influencers will come in, like I mentioned earlier, you're looking at reach, right? We need an influencer who has those numbers. However, we have to juxtapose that against what does the brand stand for? We've talked about, we are playing in the space of lifestyle, culture, right? We have to put that against which of the influencers would we want to align ourselves with. For a young brand, one of the questions you ask yourself is, do I have the budget? Right.
Very important.
Do I have the budget?
Yeah.
We would love to work with someone as big ticket as a Don Jazzy, for example.
Yeah.
But your question, do you have the budget?
Can you pay?
Exactly.
Right.
And then, so you look around a couple of things. Number one, relationships. Relationships matter a lot within the marketing space, because it's not every day you want to execute something that you have to put money on the table, right? Secondly, you will look at, actually, when it comes to spending, what's your spending power? Who would you be able to have a solid negotiation with that will still be able to deliver value for you. So those are key things. At the end of the day, you then, it's important to discipline yourself to have key objectives that help you to track your impact in whatever campaign you are doing.
Okay. Right. So I heard first understanding your brand, right? So knowing that for instance, Cafe House, you use Cafe House as a case study. Cafe House is lifestyle and culture.
Lifestyle culture brand.
Right. Lifestyle culture brand. So if you want, so you went on to say identifying influencers that resonate with this,
with the brand,
right?
And your brand objective.
Yeah. Then next step, you look at your budget, right? So what's reach before your budget reach, right? For what you're trying to reach people. So who has the kind of reach that you're looking for? Then next, you want a Don Jazzy, but you have the budget, right?
So let me just add a bit to the concept of reach. Yes, with at face value, reach is about numbers. However, based on the parameters you have defined your brand, you want to play in certain markets. All right. So my brand may not want to be in the mass market space. Therefore, I do not want an influencer who will portray me in that light. All right. My brand may want to play in that mass market segment. Therefore, I want to identify with an influencer who has strong connections within that market segment.
Yeah.
So yes, there is reach. However, it has to be what kind of audience am I trying to reach into?
Great. I mean, a lot of people have said it in different ways, but the way you said it's kind of different. Understanding that, so putting it like, okay, so what you said basically is understand the niche where
I want to put my brand in.
You want to put your brand in, right? And what do you think are the factors? So what do you look at before determining this is the niche? Is there so? Like I know I've seen a lot of people talk about. I think this is like the last part of this conversation. A lot of people talk about. I want this is where my product, but I just hear pride, right? It's usually not driven from a business point of view,
angle,
right? So it's usually not. So I know as much as you want something that's you made a qualitative decision, right? Can you back it up with some numbers, right? With some figures, with some insights? How can you use insights to determine, talking from a quantitative point of view, how can you use insights to determine where I think my brand should play, who I think should be engaging with my brand, and not just and not just from a place of, this is what I want. And again, sometimes values, right? The values of a company can determine who they work with, mass or niche, right? So let's say values are values. Let's not touch those. Let's talk about insights now.
Actuals. Okay. So I was opportune to manage the Visa brand in West Africa for a while, more than 2 years on the agency side.
Yeah.
And there was a point where we were just coming out of COVID, and the challenge then was so many businesses had closed because of COVID, right? And Visa as a brand came out to support SMEs within that sector, right? The key proposition at the time was buy local. Put your money where your mouth is, right? Support the suya seller by your house, support that lady, that tailor, support businesses within your environment. So when it came to this conversation, it was about which influencer plays within that space, right? There are SME influencers. I think the very popular one is Niger Brown Chick, right? And incidentally, she was one of the people that we used at the time. So that kind of discipline allows you to go into those particular niche markets that you're interested in. Of course, at the end of the day, it's about, as much as you are pushing brand value, you need to sell your product, right? And there were KPIs, or we need to onboard so and so number of merchants, so that at the end of the day, these merchants will drive productivity and value on the back end.
I think you've said it all, right? So you said it all. So the most important thing, right, when for that you must have in mind when creating a campaign like this is set your KPIs clearly, right? I think KPIs help you to
it's just a technique in discipline, right? So that it helps you to track, it helps you to know progress, it helps you to optimize. If for example 3-4 weeks into the campaign, I realize that my numbers are not adding up, I have to switch.
Check and say, okay, maybe we made a decision with the influencer that we use.
Exactly.
We made a wrong decision.
Exactly.
So by the time you begin to probe, you say, oh, exactly. Actually a wrong decision.
Exactly. There are brands who have started off using one influencer, and the consumers respond negatively. A marketing manager will immediately tell you, stop this guy, work with somebody else.
Amazing. So I'm just going to summarize everything that we discussed. So first, your brand, right? Your brand is key. You want to build awareness for your brand. What is your brand about, right? Then once you have that sorted out, the next important thing that you want to do is you want to look at the people who can fit into your brand, right? The influencers who fit perfectly with your brand, right? Then you look at their reach. Then you want to decide, do you want to go mass or niche, depending on your brand still, right? Then you want to go on. I think the idea of KPIs is something you should set before you begin.
Absolutely.
All right. So in the process, you should always check those KPIs to ensure. So that will help you to know whether you've made the right decision to check. So that will help you optimize your campaign per second. I mean, that's very rich, right? So if you've listened to this podcast, you can pass me an exam on how to use influencers to build your brand awareness. And that was very rich. Thank you so much, Imogie, for coming on.
My pleasure.
Thank you for giving us very detailed explanation on how we can do this. So anybody who watches this should be able to put down something, learn something, and should be able to execute them. So with that, we come to the end of this episode of the Very Lagos podcast. I still call him Imogie, but I've been corrected. Let me say Emmanuel. So
I mean, I enjoy being called Imogie.
Yeah. By the way, I think I knew you from University of Benin, right? That was in 010, 011. Yeah. So we met at CFI. CFI is Christian Fellowship International, right? So that was where I spent most of my last days in school. I just decided to stay in CFI and do a lot of work in CFI. I was driving a very stubborn truck, right? Yeah. So thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So guys, please, if you enjoyed this video, kindly drop a comment, say something nice, encourage us, right? And do not forget to turn on your notification button, right? So more content coming your way. Have a blessed day.